Cruise pricing has taken an unexpected turn in 2026, and I'm not referring to the advertised rates. I recently returned from a voyage where a pair of passengers informed me they exceeded their budget by more than $800. A different family faced an unexpected $150 penalty simply for not showing up to a scheduled dinner. The reality is that typical cruise guidance videos mention the usual overcharges, things like packaged water, art sales, and land-based tours. However, in 2026, cruise companies have become much more sophisticated. They've introduced fresh fees that are emptying people's pockets rapidly, and the majority of passengers are completely unaware these charges are approaching. I'm revealing the 10 latest cruise financial traps for 2026, and crucially, the precise methods to dodge each one. First trap: unexpected government charges. Let me begin with a charge that wasn't around when many of you began organizing your 2026 voyages: the newly implemented tourist levies. Should your 2026 journey include Mexican ports, be prepared. A fresh non-resident charge of approximately $42 per individual is being introduced. A four-person family will see $168 disappear from their funds before disembarking. European destinations present an even greater challenge. Cities like Venice, Santorini, and Amsterdam are all instituting landing fees simply for stepping onto land. Previously, you only paid docking charges. Currently, you're paying an additional entry cost beyond that. What makes this especially frustrating is these charges frequently appear after you've completed your booking. You discover an attractive rate, make your reservation, and weeks afterward receive a revised bill with these additional costs included. Just 7 days ago, someone contacted me by email. They reserved a Mediterranean voyage for their household. The initial price was one amount. When they received their final paperwork, it had increased by nearly $300 due to these new charges. This represents the current state of cruising in 2026. Second trap: Starlink internet price increase. The cruise companies are implementing something even more deceptive with their own pricing structures. Consider internet access. Cruise operators have upgraded their connectivity to Starlink, which actually improves performance. The signal strength is significantly better currently, however they're exploiting that enhancement as justification to almost double the cost. Recently, Carnival discreetly raised their premium internet to more than $25.50 daily. Royal Caribbean is approaching $30 daily on their most recent vessels. Calculate this with me. For a week-long voyage, obtaining connectivity for merely 2 individuals now represents a $350 to $400 expenditure. Consider that momentarily. $400 previously covered the cost of a complete cruise fare. Presently, it's solely the expense of accessing your inbox. I recall when I began cruising, internet was perhaps $10 daily and the signal was awful. Currently, the signal is reliable, but you're spending premium amounts for what seems like an essential service. For those requiring continuous connectivity, and honestly, that describes most of us nowadays, you must include this in your financial plan immediately. Third trap: food waste fee. The most offensive modification for 2026 isn't the internet, it's their dinner policy changes. The era of endless lobster tails in the primary dining area is finished. Presently, on companies like NCL and Royal Caribbean, requesting an additional main dish will cost you a $15 surcharge. Their explanation is waste reduction. My interpretation is excessive nickel-and-diming. Furthermore, this rule pushes you toward premium dining venues, which have simultaneously increased their fees to nearly $60 per individual. Consequently, an upscale meal for 2 at premium restaurants becomes a $150 experience. I've been sailing for multiple decades and observed the primary dining area experience gradually diminishing. Menu selections have decreased, serving amounts have reduced, and currently they're actually billing you for desiring additional portions. The implication is obvious. For the experience cruising previously offered, you'll spend extra. Fourth trap: the gratuity deception. Should the meal reductions not frustrate you, this certainly will. Required tips have increased to $20 per individual daily. A 4-person family on a week-long voyage pays nearly $600 in gratuities. However, here's my inquiry. Is the service improving? Absolutely not. Cabin attendants currently service approximately double the rooms they handled pre-2020. I've discussed this with staff members. They're incredibly overburdened. Therefore, You're spending 30% more for what seems like 30% reduced attention. Your room might receive cleaning once daily rather than twice. You might experience longer waits for room service. Your dining server is managing more stations than previously. This no longer qualifies as a genuine gratuity. It's a concealed fare increase, simply stated. The cruise companies understand most passengers don't consider this when viewing that promoted price. Fifth trap: drink package mathematics. We arrive at 2026's largest financial pitfall: the beverage package. Stop purchasing this without thought. In 2024, the equilibrium point was approximately 5 or 6 beverages daily. You could reasonably consume that amount and feel you received value. However, with packages currently reaching $110 daily on numerous vessels, the calculations have entirely transformed. You currently must consume 8 to 10 mixed drinks daily simply to break even. Unless you desire a week-long hangover, the package essentially becomes a contribution to the cruise company. I've calculated this repeatedly. I've utilized the computation tools on websites like Cruise Critic and Cruise Mummy. For most passengers, particularly those not consuming alcohol heavily, the beverage package is illogical. For 2026, individual purchases officially represent the wiser money-saving approach. Monitor your actual consumption during the initial days. You might discover how little you require compared to the package expense. Sixth trap: overcrowding cost. Here's the concealed expense nobody mentions: your time. Cruise vessels are operating above 100% occupancy in 2026. Every departure is maximally booked. Every ship reaches full capacity. This signifies the actual expense of your voyage currently includes queue standing, 30-minute elevator waits, 45 minutes for supposedly flexible dining that isn't flexible whatsoever, competing for poolside seating at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're spending premium amounts to wait in lines. I've recently been on vessels where every meal seemed hurried, every area seemed packed, and every port stop seemed disorganized. This represents the concealed charge of contemporary cruising, and it's permanent. Seventh trap: uninformed booking. The ultimate pitfall is actually the most hazardous one: reserving without research. Too many passengers notice a reduced advertised rate, make their reservation, and presume they secured a bargain. They don't examine what's covered. They don't compute the additional costs. They don't evaluate the complete end-to-end expense. Then they're astounded when their ultimate bill exceeds that initial price by 50 to 100%. This is precisely what cruise companies anticipate. They desire your focus on that prominent figure. That $900 cruise rate appears fantastic until you include gratuities, internet, beverage packages, premium dining, tours, and all those fresh tourist levies. Abruptly, that $900 voyage costs you $2,000 or beyond. Therefore, has cruising truly ended? Eighth trap: private island beverage restriction. This one is deceptive, catching numerous passengers unexpectedly in early 2026. Beginning March 1st, Norwegian Cruise Line determined that your beverage package no longer functions on their exclusive island, Great Stirrup Cay. Process that information again. You spent $80 daily for unlimited beverages. However, when you arrive at their exclusive island, it's invalid. You must pay currency for every individual drink. Consequently, you're funding a package you cannot utilize and subsequently paying additionally on top. Here's the solution. Should your voyage stop at Great Stirrup Cay, remain aboard during lunch and beverages. Obtain your cocktails shipboard, then proceed to the island solely for the beach. Alternatively, allocate additional currency specifically for that day. Carry $50 to $100 in smaller bills so you're not surprised. Preferably, select a cruise company that doesn't implement this tactic. Royal Caribbean's exclusive islands continue honoring beverage packages. MSC does similarly. This represents one of those fresh charges that seems like deceptive switching. Don't accept it. Ninth trap: 2026 gratuity increase. Gratuities have consistently been cruising components. However, in 2026, they've increased again, and this occasion it's a substantial raise. Starting April 2026, Carnival is elevating their automatic gratuities to $17 per individual daily for regular accommodations and $19 for premium rooms. Margaritaville at Sea currently charges an enormous $22 per individual daily. On a week-long voyage for 2 passengers, That's an additional $238 to $308 in gratuities exclusively. However, here's the method to circumvent the increase. Prepay your gratuities immediately. Securing them before April 2, 2026, means you'll pay the previous reduced rate. Even if your voyage occurs in July or August, you're secured at the lower price. Most cruise companies permit gratuity prepayment when booking. Alternatively, you can telephone and include it in your reservation. Execute this now. Genuinely, pause this video and prepay if you've scheduled a cruise. You'll conserve $50 to $100 simply by acting early. This represents one of the simplest money-saving methods, and most passengers don't realize it's available. 10th trap: the medical facility. The medical facility has consistently been costly. However, in 2026, it's become even more expensive. A fundamental consultation currently costs $150 or beyond. A basic ibuprofen package, they'll bill you $15 for something costing $3 at pharmacies. Requiring stitches, and $4, or anything more substantial means you're facing thousands of dollars. Here's the solution, and it's straightforward. Assemble your own floating medical supplies. Bring motion sickness medication, pain relievers, anti-diarrheal medicine, bandages, antibiotic ointment, anything you might require. I maintain a compact Ziploc container in my luggage with all this. It's rescued me numerous times. Additionally, obtain travel coverage that includes medical emergencies. Should something serious occur, coverage handles the expense and even evacuation if necessary. Never depend on the vessel's medical facility for minor issues. Carry your own provisions and circumvent those extreme markups. Has cruising actually ended? No, cruising hasn't ended. However, uninformed booking has ended. You can no longer simply reserve and presume it's a bargain. You must understand precisely what you're entering. Here's my recommendation. Initially, consider older vessels. The older, more compact ships frequently have reduced occupancy, lower costs, and visit identical ports as the massive ships. The experience can actually surpass expectations because you're not competing with 5,000 additional passengers for everything. Subsequently, always compute the complete end-to-end expense before booking. Total the fare, the gratuities, the levies, the internet, the beverages, everything. Evaluate that complete figure, not solely the prominent price. Third, reserve during promotional periods when additional benefits are combined. Numerous cruise companies currently offer bundles that include internet, gratuities, and beverages. Await those opportunities rather than purchasing everything individually. Fourth, utilize a cruise travel specialist. They frequently access deals and advantages you won't discover booking directly. When issues arise, you have someone advocating for you. The inexpensive cruise might be finished, however, intelligent cruising remains very much active. You simply must understand the pitfalls before encountering them. For learning more about preventing expensive errors on your subsequent cruise, examine this video where I analyze the accommodations you should completely avoid because selecting the incorrect cabin can destroy your journey as rapidly as excessive spending. Meet you there. Most cruise errors don't appear as errors. They appear intelligent. They appear prepared. That's why numerous passengers lose belongings, squander funds, or begin their holiday stressed before the first day even commences. I'm demonstrating 16 cruise practices that seem innocent but quietly trigger the largest problems aboard. Avoid the buffet error. The instant boarding begins, 3,000 famished individuals head directly to the buffet. It's noisy, it's packed, it's disorganized. That's where inexperienced cruisers go. The experienced passengers walk directly past. They proceed straight to the Solarium Bistro, Park Cafe, or the local venue. On departure day, most passengers presume these locations are unavailable. While everyone else competes over serving utensils, you're seated in climate-controlled tranquility with a fresh meal and zero queue. This honestly represents the nearest experience to an exclusive lounge. On most contemporary vessels, your illumination and climate control are managed by one element, that receptacle by the entrance. Removing your key card shuts everything down. However, you don't require your cruise card. Utilize an expired library card, a grocery membership card, or even a professional card. It functions perfectly. Your cabin remains cool, your phone continues charging, and you never stress because you left your key in the receptacle. Become your own mixologist. Most major cruise companies permit you to carry 2 wine bottles per cabin. However, here's the pitfall. Carry that bottle to the dining area and they impose a $25 opening fee. Here's the alternative. Carry a corkscrew. Open the bottle in your room. Fill a glass. Transport it to dinner. No charge, no complications. You just conserved $25 with one straightforward practice. The shower challenge. Cruise shower barriers have their own agenda. They drift inward. They attach to your limbs, and honestly, it's simply unpleasant. However, you can resolve it with 2 straightforward items. Heavy binder fasteners or magnetic weights. Simply attach them to the lower edge of the barrier and there you have it. The barrier remains positioned. The shower remains normal. It's a minor adjustment, but it genuinely improves every morning. These baggage tag containers are actually excellent. The error is timing their use. Never attach cruise identifiers before your flight. Airport baggage mechanisms are essentially destructive, and conveyor systems enjoy snagging those plastic loops. Attaching these at home means they'll be torn away before you even arrive. A bag without identification doesn't reach your room. The proper approach: maintain the identifiers inside your hand luggage. Attach them exclusively when you're positioned at the cruise terminal entrance or at the accommodation the previous night. Never travel with cruise identifiers attached. Stop competing over power sources. Examine your cabin workspace. Notice that unusual circular outlet adjacent to the US ones? Most American travelers simply overlook it. However, bringing a $3 European Type-C converter and connecting it doubles your charging capacity without violating the vessel's no-surge protector regulations. It's the outlet nobody else utilizes. 7th hack: the television lockout. Cruise companies disable the input control so you cannot use your streaming device or computer. The alternative: carry an inexpensive universal controller or, you understand, a Samsung controller if the television is Samsung. Frequently, a generic controller can bypass hospitality mode. Simply remember to restore it before departing so the subsequent guest isn't perplexed. 8th hack: defeat the cash machine charges. Vessel cash machines are severe, $6 to $10 per transaction. Instead, visit the gaming area. Bill $100 to your room balance as gaming credit. Execute one rotation for 50 cents, then select Cash Out. Transport the receipt to the cashier. You just obtained currency from your credit card with 0 cash machine charges. Never schedule wellness treatments on ocean days. That's when costs peak. Schedule on port days instead. While everyone else is ashore, the wellness area operates quietly. That's when 20 to 30% reductions appear. Identical treatment, significantly lower cost. This honestly represents the simplest money you'll ever generate. Planning to cruise again? Ensure you reserve while still aboard. You'll receive reduced initial payments plus immediate shipboard credit. Genuinely, it's frequently $100 or beyond that you can utilize immediately. And here's the situation: you don't even require selecting a date. Simply reserve an open booking and determine later. Stop being reserved. The primary dining area is completely unlimited consumption. Cannot decide. Simply request both selections. 3 starters. Proceed. You funded the food, so don't depart hungry. Here's an excellent one. Identical food, however at half the expense. A premium dinner might cost you $60, however lunch is frequently just $25. Examine the application on ocean days because honestly, it's among the best value opportunities on the vessel. Here's the optimal alarm device you'll discover aboard. Simply request a complimentary continental breakfast the previous night. Suspend the indicator on your entrance and that's it. The gentle knock in the morning awakens you and suddenly coffee is in your possession immediately. No phone alarm required. This one causes pain. Before departure, position your phone in flight mode. Cellular at ocean isn't covered in your subscription. Simply one email synchronization can activate massive bills. Internet enabled, cellular disabled. Consistently. The alternative: bathroom. If 4 individuals occupy one cabin, stop competing for the shower queue. Visit the fitness facility changing room. Larger showers, superior pressure, unlimited towels. It's a complimentary enhancement most passengers never utilize. Finally, Hack 16. Inverse preparation. Your inspected luggage won't arrive until late afternoon, so assemble a survival collection in your hand luggage. Swimming attire, medication, charging devices. You'll be in the pool by 1 p.m. while everyone else waits in regular clothing. Initially, let's discuss that outdoor space. You spent hundreds of dollars additional for seclusion, correct? Incorrect. Those separators between rooms aren't soundproof, and they definitely aren't sightproof. There are frequently openings at the floor, openings at the partition. Additionally, at nighttime, the glass reflections function like mirrors. Therefore, before you decide to become intimate or appear there without clothing, remember this. If you can detect your neighbor opening a carbonated beverage, they can detect everything you're executing. Don't become the corridor conversation. Regarding seclusion, remember this. Your cabin attendant enters at minimum once daily, typically twice. They're professionals and they've witnessed everything. However, let's avoid awkwardness. If you carried specific garments for the evening, or if you have forbidden items positioned on the surface, place them in a compartment before departing for breakfast. It's about reciprocal consideration. You don't desire to return and discover your personal belongings neatly positioned on a towel sculpture. Believe me, regarding those forbidden items, let's be honest. Data indicates approximately 13% of cruisers attempt to smuggle alcohol aboard to conserve money. Is it permitted?
No.
Can you be removed? Technically, affirmative. However, typically, if discovered, you're sent to the disciplinary area. This isn't confinement. It's a space where they access your luggage, seize the bottle, and return it at the journey's conclusion. Passengers trust rum runner containers. However, you must determine if conserving $50 justifies the humiliation of being summoned to security. For discovering your community aboard, you must understand the terminology in the daily schedule. The cruise companies utilize discretion here. Noticing a gathering for friends of Bill W? That's not someone named Bill organizing a celebration. That's the international designation for Alcoholics Anonymous gatherings. And noticing friends of Dorothy? That's the gathering for LGBTQ+ passengers. Understanding the terminology helps you discover your community without uncomfortable inquiries. This sounds illogical for a tropical voyage, however, bring a sweatshirt or covering. Genuinely, the climate control inside the vessel, particularly in the performance hall and the primary dining area, is configured to freezing. Additionally, the breeze on the upper deck at nighttime while the vessel moves at 20 knots is freezing. Don't be the individual trembling in a sleeveless shirt during the entertainment presentation, or you'll ultimately purchase an excessive-priced sweatshirt in the retail outlet. This represents my preferred professional suggestion. In the primary dining area, the menu represents just a recommendation. You're not restricted to one starter and one main dish. Desire 2 lobster tails? Request them. Desire to create your own surf and turf? Request the beef and the seafood. Desire to bypass the salad and request 3 starters instead? Execute it. Provided they have the components, the servers typically enjoy making it occur. You already funded the food. Don't be timid. Here's a preparation suggestion that preserves your sanity. Cruise cabin washrooms are miniature and have 0 surface area. Leaving your items out means they'll slide onto the floor. Carry an inexpensive over-the-entrance shoe organizer. Suspend it on the washroom entrance. Position your sun protection, hair accessories, medications, and deodorant in the compartments. It functions like a vertical compartment and maintains the cabin organized. Include several magnetic attachments in your luggage, also. The partitions are metallic, and you'll require them for headwear and identification holders. Heading to the gaming area? Avoid the Key Master or Skill Crane attractions. You understand the ones, stacks of currency, tablets, they appear like skill attractions, however they aren't. They're configured identically to gaming machines to exclusively pay after a specific amount of currency has been inserted. You aren't securing that tablet because you have accurate aim. You succeed exclusively if the system determines its payment time. Were you aware you can verify precisely how sanitary your vessel is before booking? It's accessible information. The CDC releases sanitation evaluations and notifications on norovirus incidents for every vessel. Concerned about security? The Department of Transportation releases crime statistics, suspicious fatalities, assaults, everything. Most passengers book without research. A professional verifies the security documentation initially. It requires 5 minutes on search engines. On the concluding morning, the vessel transforms into disorder, correct? They'll provide you a designation or zone identifier to disembark. However, here's the confidential information. You can typically disregard it. If you're capable of transporting your own luggage off the vessel without assistance, select Self-Assist. You can depart literally whenever desired, typically as early as 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't simply remain in a lounge for 2 hours awaiting them to announce designation for. With your luggage in possession, depart. This is a genuine one, and honestly, passengers misunderstand it constantly. Never attempt to pursue romance with the staff. It's explicitly against maritime employment regulations. Officers represent one situation, however inviting a bartender or cabin attendant to your room isn't being entertaining. You're actually causing their termination. They have zero tolerance for this. The vessel has surveillance everywhere. If a staff member enters a passenger cabin unnecessarily, they'll forfeit their employment and be removed at the subsequent port. On that subject, simply presume you're constantly monitored. There's effectively zero seclusion in communal spaces, corridors, elevators, decks, stairways. Surveillance covers nearly every section of the vessel for security and responsibility. The bridge monitors continuously. Additionally, be conscious that surveillance on the bridge wings frequently observe down the vessel's exterior, so your outdoor space might not be as concealed as you believe. Conduct yourself appropriately. I receive this inquiry constantly. Can I carry my edibles if I have authorization or it's permitted in California? Can I carry it? The response is negative. Cruise vessels follow federal and international maritime regulations. It's irrelevant if it's permitted in the state you depart from. Detection canines are frequently at the port terminal. If discovered, you're remaining on the dock and forfeiting your vacation funds. Leave it at residence. Ultimately, verify your expenditure balance every individual night on the cruise application. Don't postpone until the concluding day. The cruise companies make errors continuously. You might receive charges for a beverage you didn't request or a wellness treatment you canceled. It's significantly simpler to correct a $15 error on a Tuesday night than standing in a massive queue at guest assistance on the concluding morning when you're attempting to catch transportation. That queue is consistently a disaster. Circumvent it.